Hello, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough. Today we're talking about an animated movie from the UK. Last time I looked at some bad animation from across the pond, it was when we looked at Pope Town, that quickly shelved satire on the Pope, portraying him as a spoiled, foul-mouthed Eric Cartman clone. Yeah, that wasn't a very good example of an animated series from the UK, but now we're looking at one of their movies. Now for the most part, the UK seems to have a pretty good track record with animated movies, but today's subject is kinda iffy. We're looking at Freddy as FRO7, or Freddy the Frog as it was titled here in the States. The film was a passion project of the director and writer John Acebesky, who based the film around a title character that he had created for a series of bedtime stories he would tell his kids. Well-intentioned enough, though we would see several years down the road this was not always a great idea. Now, animated pet projects are always a risk. Sometimes you'll get something like Romeo and Juliet sealed with a kiss. Far from a great movie, but for a straight-to-video film, it was decent for a first-time effort by one man and his family. On the other end of the spectrum, you'll get something like Sir Billy, which had big-named actors, a whole production staff, and minor theatrical release. And the whole thing was helmed by people who had no idea what they were doing. You know, kinda like Food Fight. So where exactly does this movie land in the echelon of weird, vaguely forgotten animated films? Let's find out. This is Freddy as FRO7. We begin in Paris, France, with this 80s pop song playing over our main character, who looks like he's straight out of the 70s, and the movie itself takes place in the 90s. Be very afraid, people. Be very afraid. This is our title character, Freddy the Frog, a French anthropomorphic frogman super spy, as he takes a ride through the streets in his green car, which is alive for some reason. She's not really a major character, not sure why they felt the need to make the car sentient and give it a feminine look and everything. Well, as long as she's not as flamboyant as the Gadget-mobile.
I don't think the car likes me! Who you calling car? I'm a crime fight machine, watch this. Back turn!
I think we'll be in good hands. We then flash back to where this all began, 16th century France, as we see the king and his princely son Frederick showing off their magical abilities. Wait, what?
Once upon a time, in the country of France, there lived a prince called Frederick. His father, the great magician king, was very, very sad.
Alright, let's see. This is an animated movie, and these characters are royalty, and it seems there's only a father and son in the picture. Did something happen to the mother?
She drowned at sea the year before. The boy's heart was full of sorrow.
Okay, alright, the mother's dead. Is there some kind of backstabbing relative or second in command who wants the throne all to themselves and is willing to wipe out the family just to get that power?
The sister of the king, Messina was her name, also had the power of magic, but hers, like the night, was black.
Alright, well, I think we can all see where this is going. So as the king and Frederick go out for a horseback ride across the land, the Aunt Messina... No, Messina, not Mencia. No, trust me, she's not that evil. She turns into a snake and startles the king off of his horse as he falls 10 feet to his death. Okay, Messina, you're on a really good roll with your villainy here, but you really could have used a witty one-liner as he fell. I mean, show her how it's done.
Long live the king.
So the king is dead, and because Frederick is underage, Messina has to take over the throne.
And so Messina was to rule, while Frederick came of age, and then became the king.
Is the narrator singing his narration now? He wasn't singing earlier, now he's trying to work this into a song? Well, anyway, clearly not content with just being queen, she decides that she'll take out Frederick for good, so that way she can rule forever. She starts by turning him into a frog. Probably because she thinks they'd be easy to catch, but of course he hops out the window and lands in the ocean. Good going, lady. Work to foil your own plans. She chases after him until he's saved by... I could suspend my disbelief for a lot of things. I mean, so far this movie has had a frogman super spy, magical French royalty from the 1600s, and now the Loch Ness Monster. But I'm just going to ask this one thing. What is the Loch Ness Monster doing in France when it's commonly associated with Scotland?
You little ugly frog, one day I will catch up with you and destroy you like I did your father and your mother, and then I shall be all powerful. I shall rule the world.
What's your name, little prince?
Frederick. Frederick the Great.
Ah, charmed, I'm sure, to meet you, Freddie.
So the monster, or Nessie as she calls herself, agrees to help Freddie get back to the castle, but she seems to have gotten stuck under some rocks.
Maybe I can help.
I don't like the way she's giggling at that. Although it does give me the excuse to use this again.
Sexual innuendo.
But it seems that telepathy has taken a lot of energy out of him, so instead of taking him back to the castle, she decides to take him miles away and dump him off in a swamp with a bunch of other frogs. And for some reason, the frogs here are all cartoony and can do human things like play instruments, wear clothes, and even speak. I would make a Michigan J. Frog reference here, but these guys aren't worth it. You see, that guy revolutionized musical frogs. These people are nothing compared to him. And it's here where I gotta ask, what was the point of making Freddie a human in the first place? If you're going to establish that talking animals are a normal thing in this movie's world, then why even bother with all this previous backstory? Just have him be a frog from the beginning, and Messina is one of his many arch enemies that he's made over the years of being a spy. And it also doesn't help that they ignore this big time jump. Yeah, we go from the 1600s to now all of a sudden we're in the, at the time, current day 1990s.
He grew, and he grew, and he grew, until he reached his adulthood. And then he knew, he knew, he knew, he knew. He was not.
I am not. I am not.
So yeah, Freddie is now a super agent, kicking ass and taking names. You think that could have been a movie within itself, you know, showing a frog man become an agent and traveling around the world to stop various bad guys, but no, they just kind of breeze right past it. We then see a group of tourists taking shots of Nelson's column in London as it gets stolen, and it seems that the Tower of London was next to go, which catches the eye of some crows. Now, if you're one of those people that thinks that the crows in Dumbo are racist, just get a load of this.
Where's the bloody tower gone? Oh, am I dreaming?
I hope they haven't sold it, like they did the London Bridge. It's gone, it's gone, the bloody tower's gone. I tell you, it's gone. Hey, Yankee Doodle came to town just to buy a pony. Instead, he bought his town. Let's hope it's not a phony.
Well, come to think of it, there was that racist black duck character from Sir Billy.
Here I am again in the cold highlands of Catterness.
I'm starting to think maybe this movie has more in common with Sir Billy than I thought. And now it seems Buckingham Palace was stolen, and Stonehenge and St. Paul's Cathedral weren't too far behind. So a higher up in the British government has called in some top agents to solve the crisis. The man in question leading this mission is Brigadier G, played by the late, great Nigel Hawthorne. Oh yeah, and he has a running gag throughout the movie where he gets tangled up in phone cords. Nothing but dignity for the characters in this movie.
Sir, FRO7's just arrived in an incredible automobile.
Good. Show him in.
Yes, sir. Just to warn you, though, he's a frog.
That's no way to talk about our loyal French allies.
No, sir. What I mean is, he's green.
Nonsense. He's their most experienced man.
And you know what? Forget about the frog. Throw in a Time Lord, a TARDIS, some sidekicks, and some Cybermen. This is like a knockoff Doctor Who episode.
Let's show FRO7 what stuff the British Secret Service is made of.
FRO7, sir.
But you're a frog.
By the way, you want to know who voices Freddy? Believe me, unless you already looked it up or are familiar with this movie, you probably wouldn't guess.
And you are the head of the British Service Secret, and I understand you have a slight, what do you call it, problem?
Well, if you still can't tell, let me show you the credits. Yes, Ben Kingsley, the same guy who played Gandhi, would later go on to play a French cartoon frogman. And a bunch of other terrible movie roles, but still. Ben Kingsley, I know actors have to eat, but does your agent just hate you or something?
Disappearing buildings.
Oh gee, I wonder if that guy is working with the villains. I mean, what other reason would they have to show him chuckling maniacally to himself like that? I just can't help but wonder. So now we're finally getting some James Bond type stuff in this open James Bond parody movie. As it seems, Freddie is getting paired up with a Scottish weapons expert named Scotty and a British martial arts expert named Daphne, or Daffers as they call her. A Scottish guy named Scotty and a redhead named Daphne. Have you ever heard of characters like that in popular culture? Because I can't say that I have.
The only weapon I use is my thoughts. The powers of the mind will always overcome violence.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any concealed weapons.
Kids movie! Although, come to think of it, that's another thing this movie has in common with Sir Billy. Inappropriate breast references.
Even if she is a brazen lassie with a funny accent and I dare say an enviable chest, they don't make them like that over here now, do they?
A conspiracy afoot! Anyway, our heroes get word that Canterbury Cathedral has been stolen, and they decide to go undercover and collect some intel. They head over to a racetrack to see if they can get any clues, and once again, no one seems at all fazed by the giant frogman running around, much less a frogman dressed up as the Monopoly guy. Soon enough, Freddie gets cornered by some thugs.
We have a message for you, FRO7. And the message is... death!
But Freddie manages to hop away as the thugs report to their boss, some fat guy called El Supremo. And oh look, see who's curled up with him, Messina in her snake form. Yeah, remember her? She's finally back in the movie. And she apparently didn't die after all those years.
Commander, I shall give you a signal tomorrow, and at that moment, you will be able to come ashore with our troops and conquer the entire British Isles.
Thank you, El Supremo. We are ready and waiting.
Huh. So, French woman and a guy with a Spanish name and a vaguely Russian accent leading an army of guys who look like German and Japanese soldiers. Not since Food Fight have I seen an animated movie allegedly made for kids that had such blatant references to the Axis and the Nazi Party. The thugs get word that Big Ben is next on the chopping block. Yeah, say that out loud, in public. Even if you don't see anybody there, you don't say that kind of thing out loud. This is why you don't hire henchmen off of Craigslist. Then we get the obligatory villain song for the movie, Evil Mania.
Evil Mania, I'm gonna rule your world. I'm gonna tease you and tweeze you till you drop. Oops!
Yeah, you got this snake lady lunging her face in the camera while this funky song plays. You got Nazis on roller skates, soldier statues singing along to the chorus, henchmen being knocked dead on their feet, Klansmen dancing in the background. Wait, what? Fun fact, when Universal got the rights to this movie for a US release, they edited this scene so that instead you would see shots of their army's warships sailing to their destination. Seeing this version of the movie first, I can totally see why they did that. So Freddie, Daffers, and Scotty make it to Big Ben, as it seems Freddie told the Brigadier that Windsor Castle was the next target, since the Brigadier wanted to fight the bad guys or something. So Freddie figured it would be better if all three of them were kidnapped along with Big Ben and take on the villains in their own lair. Yeah, that's smart. Team of three go up against an entire army. Well, either way, they get taken along with Big Ben aboard this snake-looking ship and dropped off in some island near Scotland. The three of them are captured and brought to the villains. I'm sorry, I just remembered a really funny joke. Just give me a second here. God, Brian Blessed, you're another person wasted in this movie.
Interesting place. I wonder what the cuisine is like.
Oh, Freddie.
Ah, but we are in Scotland. Perhaps we will get the round things. With the bumps. What do you call it?
a haggis.
That's it. Perhaps you may give us haggis for dinner.
This is another thing they cut out of the US release, mainly because they thought us Yanks don't know what haggis is. Because apparently in America, if it isn't McDonald's, it isn't worth time. We finally get some insight into the villain's plans. They're able to steal these famous artifacts and shrink them down so they can use it to power some crystal that will emit some toxic fume that puts people to sleep.
Invasion! Defeat and slavery will follow! Now you see, FRO7. Now you see the power of the snake!
They're gonna use a gas that knocks everyone out, assuming it doesn't just kill everybody, and then when they wake up, you're gonna make them slaves, and then just take over the world. Like, not for vengeance, not for large sums of money, just for the fun of it. You know, I'm starting to see why they gave the villain song and more screen time to the Snake Lady compared to you, dude. So they do away with Freddie and Scotty by putting them into a cage and dumping them into monster-infested waters, while Daffers is taken away to be brainwashed. But hey, since they're in Scotland, Freddie can just whistle for Nessie to help them. And of course, after all that time, she's still alive too. Once she comes in and saves them, she leaves Scotty on land while she introduces Freddie to her family.
This is just a wee song in your honor, Freddie.
Yeah, that's nice and all, but you know, there's just kind of a ticking clock element here.
I'm such a shy girl. Come on, look alive, 'cause we're the giants of jive.
Potential love interest being brainwashed.
Come on, don't be shy. Go out and grab a guy.
All across the nation, people are being put to sleep, possibly being killed, and possibly going to be enslaved.
Till the sea gets high, we ain't looking for trouble.
No? Nothing? You're just going to keep singing? Okay. So after a 2-minute musical number set to Shy Girl, Nessie and her family stop the submarine fleet by tying them together with seaweed. Once they get back to the villain's base, Freddie and Scotty knock out some guards and disguise themselves to get in. And it seems Daffer's brainwashing didn't go through, because as soon as she sees Freddie, she's back to normal. She even kisses him, with his gross frog tongue and everything. A guy named Freddie and a redhead named Daphne getting together. Man, once again, I've never seen that before in anything ever.
Come on, mes amis.
Snake shall rule the world. Snake shall rule the world.
What is the password?
Freddie shall rule the world.
Years later, this became the catchphrase of one hardcore dude. And now it's time for the third act fight scene. All the while, the guy who said he was a pacifist earlier is now engaging with hand-to-hand combat. You know, instead of using those telepathy powers he has. Same goes for the weapons expert who had a jacket full of guns and he's now using whatever that is, a whoopee cushion, a blackjack maybe. All the while they use that song Lay Down Your Arms by Asia in its entirety, twice. I mean, it's a great song, don't get me wrong, but you don't have to use the whole song, let alone twice in a row. Point is, Freddie destroys the crystal and everyone begins to wake up. But it seems El Supremo puts Freddie in his place as he threatens to destroy Big Ben.
Surrender, FRO7, or I will destroy your precious monument!
I surrender.
I would say him surrendering is an easy French stereotype, but no, it turns out it's actually part of a fake-out. Because El Supremo didn't realize that Daffers activated the shrink ray and made Big Ben giant again, and then shrinks it back down with him as well. But it seems they still have to deal with Messina.
So, Frederick, we meet again. And this time you shall not escape.
I'm not the little frog I was so long ago. I do not fear you. Whatever ugly shape you take, I shall defeat you.
So the two engage in a fight, with Messina taking the form of various different creatures. Just as it seems that she has Freddie in the Python lock, he apparently gets the strength of Popeye and throws her around a flagpole. And then she turns into a buzzard and just retreats. Okay, yeah, now I'm confident that that is a French stereotype. Or possible sequel bait? Take your pick. They return the monuments, they bust the obvious double agent guy from the beginning, we quickly see Nessie and the Crows one last time, and we end with the gang getting called for a mission in Washington, D.C. The end. That was Freddy as FRO7, and this was an insane freaking movie. The characters are pretty bland, El Supremo being the most one-dimensional of the bunch, with no proper backstory or motivation. The plot and pacing tend to go all over the place. Some scenes feel like they go on forever, and other scenes go by too fast, with little time to breathe or comprehend what's going on. The songs are pretty forgettable, with the only exception being Evil Mania. The song's a banger, what can I say? The animation isn't the worst I've ever seen, but it is fairly inconsistent. Sometimes it looks really good, and other times it just looks like a cheap TV show. The humor is pretty awkward at best and groan-worthy at worst with the non-stop puns. And of course, they constantly introduce plot elements, sit on them forever, and then bring them back way later on, or don't even do anything with them. Not only was this film pretty hated by critics and audiences at the time, it was also a huge box office failure, meaning that a sequel was scrapped, and one of the studios responsible for this filed for bankruptcy. On the plus side, the movie's story is so insane at points, it's hard to not call it original. I mean, how many other James Bond knockoffs do you know of that involve a frog? And as far as some of the other bad movies I've looked at, this is way less painful compared to something like Sir Billy or Food Fight or some of the other infamously bad animated films out there. But hey, at least Evil Mania and Lay Down Your Arms were good songs, and it did give us Freddie Shall Rule the World, so there is that.
Ho ho ho! Well, I for one am insulted by this film's offensive portrayal of the French. I mean, to have a non-French actor play a Frenchman and making him a frog? Pih, I spit on this film. Pih. And a narrator that sings. Don't they know that most French narrators don't have to sing to do their narration? Pih. And also, making 16th century French royalty magic or whatever? That is not even remotely what happened in France. Pih. Sacre bleu, I need wine, baguettes, and a Jerry Lewis marathon to get over this.
Right, well, next time on the Media Whiz we'll be talking about a TV movie based on a Disney ride. But until then, I'm the Media Whiz, because one art form wasn't enough.
You right between the eyes. My poison bites. Put out the lights and then you stop. Yes, I'm the queen.
Oh, yes, you're the queen.
The queen of
I am a man.
Freddie shall rule the world.